My research problem was why can't faith-based organizations recruit and keep volunteers? I looked at three specific purposes or questions. I kind of came across these while doing my literature review, but it was what creates and keeps a volunteer satisfaction, what are volunteers' motivations, and what are the key needs for a volunteer. When it comes to the significance of my research, I found that volunteers do not depend on their volunteer work as a means of income or insurance. So if they run into issues or start feeling dissatisfied, it is very easy for them to quit. You got to keep that in mind when it comes to retaining your volunteers. The general consensus was that motivation is their initial call to volunteer, but it does not sustain volunteerism. So remember that. There's also needs that a volunteer is going to have. These can be personal or internal needs and needs related to the volunteer work. Both types of needs have to be met in order to help drive the satisfaction behind volunteering. Again, a dissatisfied volunteer is a volunteer that's going to quit. Additionally, more research is needed around recruiting volunteers. Most of the data that I found relates to being able to sustain and retain your volunteers, but not how to recruit them. As I was doing my research and kind of developed my three questions, I discovered three major themes. The first one was that the most common reason why a volunteer leaves is loss of satisfaction. This is a very hard area to meet because every person is going to be satisfied in a different way. But some key areas where having a leader who is willing to listen and understand the concerns that a volunteer might raise, has the ability to discipline a volunteer without hurting their feelings, and is willing to give the volunteer a voice, especially when it comes to various decisions around how the volunteer work is going to be handled and completed. The second theme had to deal with motivation, and that the motivation is what drives an initial volunteer to start volunteering, but it is not what keeps them. Some of the key motivators that I discovered had to do with peer pressure and with wanting to maintain or preserve self-esteem. It's also key to know that the motivations behind volunteering are going to change, especially with the length of time that someone has volunteered and their age. The other key area or major theme that I found was the volunteers' needs. Some are internal to the volunteer, some are external and directly related to the volunteer task at hand. For example, if the volunteer is teaching Sunday school class and one of the activities for today's lesson is to color a specific picture. If the volunteer does not have crayons or markers to provide to the students, that's a need that's being missed. By missing that need, you're directly reducing the satisfaction of your volunteers. Another key thing is to create a handbook for your volunteers. An organization creates them for their paid employees so that the employees know what is required of them and what is expected. The same thing needs to be done for your volunteers. This handbook needs to be clear, concise, and easy to understand, but try to keep it in a happy, friendly theme. Finally, appreciation for the volunteer is a key need. Every person receives appreciation in different methods. As a leader of a group of volunteers, it is your responsibility to learn and understand the different methods of appreciation for your volunteers and try your best to meet those. A great example would be a plaque. You could give that for 5 years of volunteer work. Some people are going to be very satisfied from that and really appreciate it. Other people are not going to care about it. When it comes to the implications and applications, religious organizations could benefit by taking the time to understand their volunteers on a personal level, understand their motivations and their needs, help try to satisfy these needs and these motivations, and you'll find your volunteers are staying longer, they're being more satisfied. Sometimes it's simple things. Walk into your volunteer area. Is it warm? Is it welcoming or is it dirty? Are the supplies required there? Take a look back. Have you had volunteers who have brought up issues in the past? How did you handle that? Did you ignore it? Did you say, yeah, I'll take care of it, only to forget all about it? Also, as a leader, are you giving your volunteers the ability to receive further training? Are you letting them work as a team or as an organization? Are you making them this show up for an hour, do their job, and leave? I would encourage you as a leader to have your volunteers take a personality test and share those results, not only with you, but with the other volunteers. As you all start to understand each other, you can work better together and help drive each other's satisfaction. Take the time required to foster these relationships and watch as it not only provides you with more satisfied volunteers, but they'll start talking to others, and soon I believe your volunteer group will grow.